After some trial and error, I figured out that the pump was failing due to heat. After the pump runs 20 minutes or so, 30, it warms up, shuts off till it cools off. Getting in here, I'm cutting this out very carefully because this is literally laying on top of this. So if you cut too far down, game over. You're into the gas tank. Now that I've got it sketched out with the cutoff wheel, I'm going to go get me a pry bar and lift this up so I can cut a little more confidently. And then once this goes back in, it'll have a set of hinges and a latch on it so that if I have to do this job again, just pull my stuff out, unlatch it, flip it up. But in a nutshell, this is roughly a 6-7 inches by 14 inch or so piece that I'm cutting out of here. And then after that, again, it'll be on hinges, so I won't have to do this every time I do a fuel pump. But I don't want to take the skid guard off, the hitch, everything else, because that's quite honestly more time consuming, because if I have to do it again and I did it through the bottom, that means I have to take everything off again. So not only am I taking it off and putting it back on, and as you can see, this thing is pretty crusty, so I don't want to be agitating that thin metal anyway. So 20 minutes later, this is my work so far. Took a knotted wire wheel, went around the outside, knocked all the rust I could off of this stuff where it's bubbling up and going to be a problem. So once I cut this out, I'll be painting around this the best I can to hold off the rust. This doesn't matter, it's going to be getting replaced in this quadrant right here, but the other side looks like it's pretty decent other than right there, which ain't going to be a problem. I'll replace that later too. Now that I got all the carpet out, it makes it even easier. But my method was, since the tank ends right there and I have to watch, this other line and about halfway back, not so much, but I'm just gently going over it with the cutoff wheel, not taking a lot off at a time, because I basically just want to score the line and then pull it up a little bit at a time, and that way that the cutoff wheel doesn't dip too deep and go into my tank. But now, again, up on the upper side towards the front, the way I've got it cut, that ain't gonna be a problem. And then if I need to go forward, I will, but I was trying to not get into this nut right here and bolt, and there's a set right there. I was trying to stay away from those. I guess that's the supports on the bottom. I haven't really paid a lot of attention to it. I basically looked under it enough to see about where the pump was and went from there, and since I have this reference of knowing where the tank actually is, that changed that. So in a nutshell, soon I will be getting a welding blanket sticking under this to keep the, and I'll be using a fan under there too to blow all fumes and stuff away. And at that point, weld in some more flat stock there, seam seal and paint it, and away I go. But for the time being, we're just, again, this piece that is coming up is not going to be what's put back down. What's put back down will overlap about 1 inch all the way around, and that way that it gives some structure back to it by virtue of just laying there. So 20 minutes later, this is my work so far. Took a knotted wire wheel, went around the outside, knocked all the rust I could off of this stuff where it's bubbling up and going to be a problem. So once I cut this out, I'll be painting around this the best I can to hold off the rust. This doesn't matter, it's going to be getting replaced in this quadrant right here, but the other side looks like it's pretty decent other than right there, which ain't going to be a problem. I'll replace that later too. Now that I got all the carpet out, it makes it even easier. But my method was, since the tank ends right there and I have to watch, this other line and about halfway back, not so much, but I'm just gently going over it with the cutoff wheel, not taking a lot off at a time, because I basically just want to score the line and then pull it up a little bit at a time, and that way that the cutoff wheel doesn't dip too deep and go into my tank. But now, again, up on the upper side towards the front, the way I've got it cut, that ain't going to be a problem. And then if I need to go forward, I will, but I was trying to not get into this nut right here and bolt, and there's a set right there. I was trying to stay away from those. I guess that's the supports on the bottom. I haven't really paid a lot of attention to it. I basically looked under it enough to see about where the pump was and went from there. And since I have this reference of knowing where the tank actually is, that changed that. So in a nutshell, soon I will be getting a welding blanket sticking under this to keep and I'll be using a fan under there too to blow all fumes and stuff away. And at that point, weld in some more flat stock there, seam seal them, paint it, and away I go. But for the time being, we're just, again, this piece that is coming up is not going to be what's put back down. What's put back down will overlap about 1 inch all the way around. And that way that it gives some structure back to it by virtue of just laying there. And for those that's wondering, my measurements at the moment is 17 inches from this line to this line. I think it's 7 inches that way. But basically I came back here to get it on an even keel. Went 18 inches up to the first line, and then, no, it's 6 inches. That's 6 inches across because it's 18 here. And I went 2 feet up here. So 2 foot from the end of this all the way forward, come back 6 inches, and then just do it multiple times. That way you can get a nice square piece that's not jimmy jacked all the pieces. So now I've got my plate cut out. I started with a straight, square, nice and neat little plate. And it turns out that the plate is not going to be square or nice and neat. And I was a little bit overzealous, but I needed to clean this stuff out anyway. So it's not that big of a deal. A wire wheel and away I go. Now, you can go, we'll say, 1 inch forward of so 19 inches from this area all the way forward will put you pretty well out of the gas tank range. And you only need to cut a square from there to there, over and back. So that's in the neighborhood of, since I got my tape measure. So yeah, you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 5 inches from the end of the tape measure back, because you remember you were going to go 19 inches next time around. And then you only need to go, so you can shave off 5 inches there. So a 12 by 5, 12 inches from this side over by 5. So 12, 5. And then this is a structural piece right here, so you don't want to cut into that. This is just the sheet metal on top that I've cut out and nipped out. So if you didn't want to cut all the way over like I did, we'll say an 8. So a 8 by 5 square, smack in the center, back here to where your hatch is. Split the difference, go up 4, 4, and then go up from there 5 inches, and you will have a nice little access panel for your fuel pump. So now that we've got it open, I've got to undo my fuel line, undo the electrical outlet line there, pigtail, and then take a wire brush and clean around this lock ring so I can pull all that out and not get dirt and rust and crap down in my tank. So once you fish this all out, the only wires you have to disconnect are the orange wire going up to the sending unit, that's your power wire, and then you have to disconnect this thicker black wire off of this sending unit, that's your ground. And then you have to take this nut off. I don't even know what size it is. We'll say 10 millimeter-ish, 3/8 inch. And then after that, it will let this little foot peg slide off, and then you can slide your pump off from there, just like so. See how that all comes available. Alrighty, so now that we've got the foot piece that I showed you a second ago off, basically, since this has still got like the factory vinyl style rubber piece, and these clamps, you can't do anything with those but cut them off. So at this point, you're going to have to figure it out as to how to take those off. In my case, my fix is just simply cut it off, because at that point, that's all you can do. And if you can't cut it off, you should be able to twist it completely up. At least on this one end here. Yay, extra gas and stuff all over me. Love it. So it's a Bosch fuel pump. 12 volts. That's all the part numbers I see right now. We'll get into that a little more in a second. Yeah, the pump that I have to replace this does not have a strainer on it. And honestly, I'm probably not even just going to run one. Because one, it's really hard to get this out the way I have it without bending and flexing stuff. And then two, honestly, the silt that I'm seeing is just so fine. It's like makeup grade dust, basically, moon dust. So it's going through the strainer or anything. Like this is basically to keep stuff like a wrench from getting sucked up in there. So we need that again. So all the pieces we're going to keep and have to keep a handle on, we're going to put over here. So we're going to go ahead and put our nut on here and set it to the side. Get a few turns so it don't fall off. The end cap for the bottom, it's a dampener, anti-vibration piece. We'll go ahead and unplug the fuel pump itself. Try to get that to slide out. There we go. Now it's unplugged. So there's that. And then on the new one, I'll just simply unplug it and put in that. We won't even try to wire it up. Like this is what you're seeing. It's built to splice in for whatever reason, and it's a stupid design, but at any rate, it looks identical to what I've got. And I'll do a little more work on this and finish up, but essentially that's all this is. Switch the plug over from there to there, hook this nozzle into this black hose, and then put the footrest and stuff back on, put you a fresh gasket on, and away you go. I just want to address this real quick. This is a CarQuest brand fuel pump, and it's the exact same stuff as a Delphi pump with a different number. Now, the Delphi pump does come with extra stuff, more hoses and clamps and such, but you can get by with this. This is the bare bones. It was $53, and I had some speed perks or whatever, and it came out that I basically did. So I paid $48 after tax. Now, this is the Echo 2Niner5017. It comes up for $96, but for whatever reason, it says inline fuel pump. Now this is where I was really confused. So I had to have my parts buddy to pull some more pumps and whatnot. For starters, they want you to wire this into the oil pressure sender line so that if the oil light comes on, it kills the pump, which honestly ain't a bad idea. Except for I don't want to do that work. And then it has this set up here that it's saying to the carburetor, and it's an inline pump and this and that, and yeah, I guess you could run it that way. I don't know. It's not the way that it's going to be ran, because this is identical to the Bosch that's in there right now. So as far as I know, Bosch was the original brand that they used, so I was 90% certain that that was the original pump, which, given it's almost 30 years old, I'll give it a pass. Especially this moon dust everywhere, I don't understand that. But anyway, yeah, that at this point, all I got to do is just replace this pump with this one on this hose, wire everything up, and stick it all back in the tank. All right, so I've got everything separated, and at this point we've passed the threshold of getting it all apart. So now we're more than 50% done. So now I went ahead and transferred the original wiring over so it all clicks in place, because the one that they gave me was one you would splice in, and I don't want to use that. I'll keep it for a spare, but past that I don't want to use it. Now, the big thing for me is I wasn't going to run the strainer, but I shook it and I don't hear no garbage down in it, so I think this is still good to go. So I'm going to take it and just put this strainer right over it. There's your little lock washer that you put on there, and then now just press it all back together. And then we turn our pump just so. But before that, there it is. Earlier, I figured out that the pump wasn't actually attached the way it was supposed to be. So I brought me some pliers over to get some leverage so I can click this down in place the way it's supposed to be. I can get it put together right. There we go. Now, backside, I'll show a picture here, but the backside, now it's all clipped together the way it should be. And now, that's the old pump. It's out of the way. New pump is right here. So we have to turn it a certain way so that we can slide this barrel up into that there. And away we go. And then now we take our nut and stuff and we put our little foot peg back in, I guess you'd call it. We'll have to turn our pump just a so it fits up in there. At this point, it looks like it's the way it's supposed to be, so we'll call that done. All you have to do is thread this on, tighten it up. I like my, in this case scenario, I like my German metrics of tightening, which is good and tight. I don't know what the actual number is, don't ask, I don't know. This is backyard hillbilly shakery shit that get it done with some knowledge and understanding of how it works. I don't know how else to say it other than that. So now we'll just turn this a little more and past this. So now, pump's on, we've salvaged everything. I did take the opportunity to clean this rheostat here because my gas hand was ever so slightly off. It would show that you were running out of gas at quarter tank when in all honesty you were empty. So now we'll take our pieces of wire, hook them back up to where they're supposed to go, and again, away we go, because we're done. Once I get this orange wire hooked up, it goes right there. That's the other reason you want to take pictures of everything before you ever touch it. So now, all we have to do at this point is fish this back through, hook everything up, tighten the lock rings, and away we go. So here's your fuel line. You have your lock ring, and then you have your gasket, which in my case, I'm about 90% certain it's bad because A, it's soft as it can be, B, it's stiff to get off, like it's glued in place. So I'm going to replace that. Looks like it's just a fat O-ring. So I'll go ahead and run to the store and get a new one of those, because I'd fill it up, and once it got up to 3/4 of a tank or so, it'd start leaking out right through here. So, and plus I'll clean all this up with a wire brush here in just a moment. But I don't see any large chunks. I don't see anything particularly wrong with it. So yeah, we'll just clean it up, put it all back together, and away I go. So I'm replacing the fuel pump on my Jeep XJ because after some trial and error, I figured out that the pump was failing.